and start this thing from the beginning, because you got to do screen share for this to work. Sorry about that. If you could all mute too, that'd be helpful. All right. There we go. Now thank you. I knew I did something wrong, and now I know what I did wrong. All right. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do slideshow. There we go. Oh, my goodness. Excellent. So we talked last time about mind states, these universals, and the occasionals. These are ones that we can cultivate, 8 through 13. Initial application, sustained application. That's for mindfulness or for meditation practice, for concentrating the mind. Decision, very important. So when we're distracted, we notice we're distracted, we make the decision to come back to watching the breath. Energy is this vitality and zest. These are positive energy states that we can bring to meditation practice that increase our ability to practice. And then desire, which is kind of, I think aspiration may be a better word than desire, the aspiration to meditate and the aspiration to practice and be successful at that. And of course, any one of these occasionals will have the universals present in them. And we were looking at the unwholesome factors. The unwholesome factors are ones that will be distracting us and interfering with our ability to do meditation practice. We're not going to focus on it necessarily, the first 3 of the universals: delusion, shamelessness, and fearlessness of wrong, because they may or may not be present as we're struggling with our meditation practice. But the ones we're going to focus on tonight are restlessness, greed, hatred, sloth, and torpor, kind of clumping those together, and doubt. Those 5 are the toughies. And of course, to some degree, we're going to be maybe looking at antidotes to them that might be wholesome mind states that we can cultivate. But we're going to get there. So I just love the picture of this woman looking at the cookies. It just captures that, especially with her eyes wide open. Craving is just such a difficult mind state to work with. We know what the wholesome thing to do is, to eat all that green vegetable matter, and yet there are the cookies. And I don't know if you've heard that cookies will sing, but they will sing to us. And like the siren, I think about, the poor Odysseus as he's journeying, and then he has to be strapped to the mast so that he doesn't, and then he listens to the sirens singing, and because he wants to know what that feels like. So I feel like when we're doing meditation practice, we get to be Odysseus, dealing with craving, greed, and lust. And this guy here, he's full of lust. These experiences are not chosen. I want you to not be self-judgmental when this stuff happens. This is just being a human being. And these things arise all by themselves. We do not create these things. They are conditioned responses. How many times have we chosen cookies over salad, or chosen the unwholesome food over the wholesome food? I know I know I've conditioned myself many times in those unwholesome choices. Or lust, greed. These things just appear in us, not based on our wanting them to be there. They just come. So So this is the nature of all of these hindrances. Hey, I love this lady here. She's experiencing hatred and aversion. That, again, these things appear. We're sitting there minding our own business, watching our breath, and all of a sudden, some unpleasant sound goes by. Sounds are very, very stimulating, this kind of thing. I think about when I had cats long ago. We had cats. And I'd be sitting there meditating, and the cat would be sticking his little paw under the door, batting at the door because he wanted my attention. And it was not hard to, it was not pretty automatic response to be aversive. How often have we're sitting there meditating and we're doing our life, what happened yesterday shows up, and some unpleasant interaction with some coworker or somebody in the grocery store or somebody on the street who's aversive in their reaction, and just feeling that, oh, I wish that person would go away. I wish I didn't have to deal with that person. That I sometimes think of that with greed and lust. I mean, you're leaning forward. It's like, oh, give me more. And then with the aversion, it's like, oh, the movement back. Oh, I would just want to get away from. So you can almost feel in your body these states. So very common experiences. I don't know. I love my sloth here. Isn't he sweet? So sloth, torpor, sleepiness, these mind states are, again, visit you. You're not wanting them to show up. So I get up really early. I have a full day on Sunday morning, and I'm driving home on the Northway, and I'm thinking that I'm a little tired. I try to drink some stimulating substance to keep me awake, but I'll often find that I start getting drowsy. And so I'm fighting this sleeplessness, this sleepiness, just fighting this sleepiness and not knowing what to do with it until I pull over, roll down the windows, get out of the car. I mean, let's say they're just these states come, and they're very hard to work with because sleepiness, you don't have that much energy. I was talking earlier about energy, and zest, enthusiasm. Without those, and you're just kind of sitting there, it is hard to summon the stimulation to keep paying attention to your breath. So very difficult to work with, this sloth, torpor. I think even harder sometimes is restlessness. My poor wife. Maybe some of you have experienced this. The waking up at 3:00 in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep. Very disturbing. And what often happens is the mind starts racing with all kinds of thinking. There's the body can't be still, and it's very difficult states. And the last one that I want us to look at is one of the ones that might be not as obvious as a hindrance, but it is incredibly difficult to work with. This is when doubt is happening in the mind. There's the questioning, why am I doing this? Is this really worth it? Especially doubt will often arise with the other four. You can get a storm of hindrances where it'll be doubt and restlessness, or doubt and aversion. especially if there's discomfort in the body. Why am I forcing myself to try to sit still? What good is this? So doubt is probably the hardest, because doubt is what's likely to make you stop meditating. Get up, get a cup of coffee, cup of tea, and give up. Doubt and giving up, they're strongly associated with each other. So have you experienced, I want to just ask, are these hindrances familiar to you? Yeah. Yeah, we all are tortured by these hindrances. Well, I'm glad to say that the hindrances can be dealt with. And we're going to deal with them one by one and see if we can come up with some solutions. So there are antidotes to the hindrances. So I'm curious about, if you have, this is the chance for your interaction on this, is your thoughts about how to deal with craving. If you've had any success when craving arrives. And actually, craving can come up at any time in your life, but in meditation practice or in life, what has, when you've recognized that this mind state has appeared, and you know, you at least have some recognition that this is not a pleasant mind state, and you're thinking, well, what can I think about, or what can I do, or is there any way to deal with this craving? Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Go ahead, Madeline.
Well, I mean, I struggle with this one a lot. So I think about two things. I think about the consequences if I give in to the craving.
Ah,
And I also think to myself, you know what, Madeline, you can't have the cookies right now. You have to have the salad right now. But you can have the cookies at another time.
so delay.
I can have, yeah. I can tell myself, can't have the cookies all the time every day, but every once in a while I can have a cookie. Just not right now. Right now we're gonna have a salad.
Mm,
And maybe on Saturday I'll have a cookie.
I like that solution.
So I think about consequences, and I think about the fact that
Great,
yeah, you can have a
great
cookie.
strategies. Anybody else have some good strategies for cravings? Go ahead, Catherine. You have to, get that unmute.
There we go. I don't find, I can't make myself not want it. But if I start working on something else, like if I get up and do the laundry, or I do find that the craving subsides. But the others that are included in that, greed and lust,
Yes.
I'm not sure those would be so easily pacified, the lust particularly, but maybe just distracting yourself.
Well, but I think distraction is a fantastic tool. Yes, definitely distraction. To some degree, the experience of noting that craving is happening and then coming back to the breath is kind of a little bit of a distraction, because you're trying to bring your attention to a different object. So,
and physically you're doing something. So
yes, yeah, there's definitely the attention is moving to a different, you're moving to a different place.
yeah.
Eileen, have you got any strategies you want to throw in?
She's eating dinner.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. But I will say,
Between mouthfuls.
I will say, no, I have no strategies, and I wish I did.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me give you some here. Letting go. Letting go. There's one, so letting go is one. In Buddhism, this concept of renunciation, and this is a hard one, which is to say that I will no longer eat that food, or I no longer will go do an action that would be to satisfy that craving. For me, I have a lot of dietary limitations. So there are certain foods that I know that I will have a very strong aversive reaction to. So even though I like those foods, I crave some of those foods, I've made a decision that I will not eat that food. And so if the craving comes up, I revisit the renunciation saying, I'm not going to do that. So let me just say that doesn't work very well for some things where I can maybe have a little bit of something. But if I eat too much, then I have a problem. But then there's like a portion control piece. Well, I can have, like with the cookie example, I can have one cookie after I finished the whole salad, so there's like a reward for doing the healthy thing, something like that. So those are a couple of strategies. The letting go is more when you see the recognition that this is a craving, and then the memory of this as an unwholesome mind state, and then choosing to just not follow up on that. And sometimes that has to be revisited. It's a modified renunciation. It's saying, I'm not going to do that today. And this is a common thing with alcohol, trying to be free of alcohol dependence, is to say, I'm not going to drink today. Making that, you make a commitment that is manageable for today. And I think that's a fantastic tool for working with cravings is that. So some good strategies there with craving. How about hatred? Has a very different quality than craving. Because craving, we think that our mind is deluded into thinking that this satisfying a craving will make us happy. Whereas we know, it isn't very confusing to know that satisfying a hatred is going to have a negative result. But still, we can easily get deluded by hatred, especially if it's around. Because the other side I wanted to say about hatred and aversion is that it can be very subtle. It can be very subtle that it can operate. The bias is one of the things that's hard to detect sometimes. That when you have a bias against, let's say, somebody because of their skin color or their accent or their size, if they're a big person or a little person. So there's many different kinds of aversions that operate maybe a low level of consciousness. We're not maybe even aware of them. So any strategies that you would do you think might be good that's worked for you, things that have helped you when you've got into a place of not dislike or hatred? Go ahead, Madeline.
Yeah. What comes to mind with the word hatred is when I feel angry towards someone for something, for example. And I know that I can get caught in anger and stuck in anger, but I find what can help me is understanding that when I have issues with someone that cause me to be angry at them, that there's always a learning experience there for me.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just about how dare they do this to me kind of stuff, what the heck? That there's always that because there's always a learning experience in that for me, then I can try, if I can, to move away from the hatred and into trying to understand what the learning experience is.
Mm.
And that kind of broadens the context for me and lessens the emotion.
So instead of your energy going out, you turn the energy inward and
I guess
use it
so,
as
yeah.
a way of exploring what's happening inside of you.
Yep. What the meaning of for
Yeah.
example, what the meaning of the altercation was, or the meaning of
Yeah.
what happened and why I had the reaction I did.
Great. Great. Other strategies people have that work well with anger or hatred.
Well, this isn't a strategy, but I'm thinking of the Israeli Arab.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the paper today, 3 whole pages of what has happened with the bombings that have been in answer to October 7th, and how the hatred is just so pointless because of all the destruction that it causes. And I don't think there's an answer there, but it's so clear.
Mm. So
Doesn't-
just so it sounds for me, it's the education process of just knowing the harm, being aware of the harm that hatred causes.
Yes, and the other thing that is that if you know somebody well, if you hate them, but then you learn to know them, it's almost impossible to maintain that kind
Mhm.
of a stance.
So bringing curiosity and maybe investigation into who they are and beginning to see them as a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very helpful. Right. Anything, Eileen, that comes to mind for you?
Yes, my first thought upon it was therapy. You know,
Very good strategy for dealing with hatred.
therapy and also meditation, right? Like
Yeah.
meditation kind of gives you that distance
Mm.
or that like even like how you have like letting go up by craving, like letting go again, you
Yeah.
know. And I think it can be very different depending whether it's a personal thing or, as was just said, like just the larger world, like looking at,
Yeah.
especially obviously coming up to the election and things like that. And if you have family members that you do not agree with, as is the case in my, you know,
Mm.
siblings, stuff like that, like it is so hard to let that go sometimes, especially I think one of the other strategies is turning off the news for for a while.
Withdrawal from the situation. Yes. Very good way to deal with hatred. Well, I've got another one here, a couple others. Sometimes active generosity, because that kind of goes by countering the hatred with something that generates sometimes giving to another person can really change that other person. It can change the relationship in some ways, because sometimes hatred has to do with the other person experiencing some negative feelings, and generosity is a powerful way to give an opposite message that might be part of a hatred situation. And then loving kindness and metta. I find that when I offer loving kindness and metta to people that I'm really having trouble with, or I'm feeling aversion towards, that can really be very, very helpful in changing me, changing the inner state of what I'm experiencing. And so I offer those as a couple of extra ones to throw in the pot. We're generating some great lists. So I'll have to go back and.
So what is metta?
Loving kindness is the same thing as metta.
That's, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I like when I'm using words that have a specific meaning in the Buddhist tradition, I like having the original word and the translated word together so that you realize that it's more than loving kindness. Loving kindness is our kind of a translated word, but there's the actual term has a lot more meaning to it. And were you to explore that word in translation, you would find many more different references to expand on that. So, all right, what do we got next? Sleepiness. Oh my goodness. I think sleepiness is a really hard one. But there's a lot of practical things you can do with sleepiness. Any good strategies that you've come up with sleepiness?
Take a nap.
Take a nap. Well, and indeed that is the Buddha has had this long list of strategies to wake you up, and then if none of those works, he says, go take a nap. But there's some other clever things you can do to try to wake up. Cup of coffee could be helpful. Use a stimulant. Caffeine. I think these are more fun. Just look at.
Yeah, it's like taking a walk.
Taking a walk, movement. So sometimes just getting up. I know many times I've been sleepy. Getting up, going for a walk, very, very helpful. Or even just standing. One of the things that with sleepiness, if you go from a sitting posture, the worst case, I mean, I have to say, lying down meditation and sleepiness, if you ever never have problems with sleepiness, I think lying down and you want to work on sleepiness, lying down meditation is an excellent practice place for working with all the strategies to keep you awake. So increasing your oxygen, sometimes having some deeper breaths can be helpful. That's one of the things I notice when I'm driving is that the oxygen level sometimes in the car drops and the carbon dioxide level goes up because I have the windows maybe rolled up and I'm not getting enough breeze through. So opening the windows, I'll notice, oh, my brain gets a little freshened up. And then stimulation. I have to say it's not the best kind of stimulation, but a loud sound is very helpful to startle, right? To have the startle reflex. And that could be, and this is actually what they do in Zen, because if they notice you're sleepy in this one kind of Zen practice, they'll come over and then they'll rap you on the shoulders with a stick. And it makes a loud sound. So it's actually a very effective tool and it really wakes you up. So, and if you're a good Buddha, you see, now, if you get caught up in the ego piece of it, oh, I'm being punished for being sleepy. That's one perspective on it. Or you could have the perspective, especially if it helps you wake up, that this was you can bow to the person giving you that whack because they've helped you to chase away your sleepiness. So often these authoritarian rituals can be useful where there's power over kind of situation. All right, so that's sleepiness. How about restlessness? Has anybody had good strategies for restlessness besides a stiff drink? May not be the healthiest solution for restlessness because it dulls the mind, which is unfortunately, then you move into the sleepiness category.
If I can't sleep, I will read, and that helps me become sleepy. But I don't know what I would do if I were trying to meditate and I were restless.
Oh yeah, because reading would be stimulating your mind in a way you wouldn't want. Yeah.
I think deep breathing again can
Well,
help.
that could be helpful. Yeah. Because it would bring your awareness to your breathe, to your focus your mind a little bit. Yeah. Here's what I've got. So focusing the mind and one pointedness, concentration, that I've done this many times, so I know that that this is a very effective technique to, and that's where deep breathing can sometimes be helpful because you're getting a little bit more oxygen and you're getting more aware of your physical body. Often restlessness will go with having too much thinking going on. Very, very often restlessness goes with a lot of mental activity where the mind is bouncing all over the place. And so anything that holds one object, sometimes there are many techniques for focusing the mind and like to have your attention focused right on maybe on the tip of your nose. This can be very, very helpful. And then just really focusing on the movement of the breath in and out. One of the tools that I think can be very helpful with restlessness is counting the breaths. So maybe counting 1 on the in breath, 2 on the out breath, 3 on the in breath, 4 on the out breath, or some combination of 1 in, 1 out, 2 in, 2 out, maybe up to 10. Maybe you can't get to 10. Maybe you get to 4, and then you try to get to 5, and then you try to get to 10. Counting to 100 can be fun too. But the counting process actually engages processes, mental activity processes that can be very helpful in calming the mind. And the goal of the one pointedness is to get into this calm and relaxed state. Sometimes just relaxing the body, a body scan can be very helpful because there might be tension that you're holding in the body that you're not aware of. And so just kind of scanning through the body for tension and then breathing into releasing that tension can be very, very helpful. I was thinking about one of the techniques that the Buddha taught for sleepiness I'd forgotten, which was, and I don't know if this would work with restlessness too, it's to pinch your earlobe. So to touch your earlobe and then pinch it and hold it. Something to practice sometime to see what happens. There's something that does to the brain that evidently stimulates it, wakes it up.
Huh.
All right. Last on our list, doubt. Any good strategies on doubt that you've dealt with? Because this doubt comes up in life too for other kinds of things where you're doubting yourself, maybe, or doubting your abilities, or doubting having doubts about a situation or somebody, or where you know that you should be trusting this person, but you're doubting. How do you deal with doubt? Any good strategies that you've come up with?
Well, I'm not sure that this is relevant
Go
to
ahead.
meditation, but doubt is so self-absorbed.
Yes.
If you can focus on outside yourself onto others, and get engaged with others, then there's no room for doubt at the moment.
I'm thinking about you're at a meditation space. You may be sitting with other people, and you might find inspiration by looking at other people's posture. They're sitting up nice and straight, or they seem very sincere in their effort, and so one could take inspiration from their effort. So something like that might be helpful. Any other thoughts on how to deal with doubt?
I find it's helpful to acknowledge first acknowledge the doubt, to first acknowledge whatever has whatever I'm feeling, if it around doubt, that it's okay to feel that. It's part of being human.
Lovely.
Just as a kind of a way of soothing myself, I guess. And then moving into a different sort of mindset, I guess similar to what we were talking about craving, that sort of letting go and sort of understanding, trying to move into a different way of looking at things.
Well, that and this true for all of these hindrances. One of the primary antidotes is to recognize them. That's the first thing, is to be mindful that they're present. Also helpful to be mindful when they're absent, because we often, all these things we tend to be more aware of when they're present than when they're absent. And so when you notice that they're absent, that can be, then you know that they're transient. They come and they go. And that strengthens your awareness that whatever's present right now might not be present. And it decreases maybe your anxiety about that being present. There's a whole bunch of things I'm not craving right now. And I really am grateful that I'm not craving them. And all the things that I used to crave when I was younger. Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderful freedom. So yes, definitely mindfulness of doubt. Very, very helpful technique. Very, very helpful. Anything else anybody wants to throw in for doubt?
I think I was just going to say that, just like it was just said, that acknowledging, I think, not just to yourself, but like if you say it out loud to somebody else,
Yeah.
I think that that's very helpful. And again, almost like a letting go kind of thing. And once you have said it, that, and, it could be your own doubt, or it could be if you're like in a conversation with somebody and you're talking through different approaches, and you're both strongly about, even though you feel strongly, we've learned a lot, my husband and I lately, to be saying like, I could be wrong, but, or I'm not so sure about this, but, this is still how I feel, but
right.
I'm not sure it's the right way to go.
But doubting doubt. So here's some suggestions. Faith can be a wonderful resource. Having faith in the Dharma. This is in Buddhism, this is called taking the refuges. Having refuge in the Buddha, that he became enlightened, that it's not a fiction, that he actually experienced something, and that he did become enlightened. Having faith in the Dharma, that the teachings, having faith that this is all helpful stuff, and it will help us become free of our suffering. And then having confidence that there's a community practicing together, and that our mutual effort makes a difference, and a very positive difference. Another way to frame it, so there's the faith, which is kind of this almost in the belief category, that just believing that this is going to work, and returning to that belief and investing in that confidence. Confidence is a little different, because confidence comes from your own memory of the success that you've had, the times when your mind has been quiet, the times when craving hasn't been present, or the times when hatred hasn't been present, the times when you were alert and not sleepy or restless. Though the memory of that, and the confidence that, yes, I experienced that in the past, and I can probably experience that in the future too. And that's also connected to the remembering, because remembering and confidence can be very, very, very similar. In fact, the word sati, which is the word of mindfulness, is one of the translations of it is remembering. to remember. So all this faith, confidence, remember, all those come together with, there's a continuity of existence that is the antidote to doubt. Because doubt is trying to undermine one's confidence, what we know is true from our own experience. And these are methods to revitalize that. And I was talking a little earlier, we were talking about inspiration, and that's another source where the stories about another person. I think metaphor and story are powerful tools for dealing with doubt, because there's something in us that resonates with an inspiring story or analogy that help us to regain confidence, to regain faith, to regain remembering. So those are all of my lessons for today about the hindrances. And what's so important about hindrances is to recognize that they come and go. And if they're there, just knowing that they're impermanent can be a huge, huge asset and assistance, because they will definitely try to persuade you that if you don't eat that cookie, if you don't get away from that person, if you don't take a nap, or if you don't just quit and give up, in that moment, there's this delusion. That's what mindfulness dissipates, is the illusion that these things feel permanent when they're in the moment, but they're not. All right, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to stop recording too.